Welcome to BeingLab, and we have a new episode today. This time, as you can hear, in English. So I welcome all of you Spanish speakers and English speakers that are tuning in for this version of BeingLab. And today I want to talk about breaks in transparency. And it may sound like a mouthful, but you'll see that we commonly refer to that as problems. And one of the aims of today's episode is to challenge our perspective on problems, to begin to shed light, to shine a light, to perhaps open possibilities so those that we call problems become something more fruitful, more interesting, and more potent, by the way. We can then allow them to be part of our knowledge and understanding of the world. I am Gonzalo Córdova, and this is BeingLab, conversations that transform the way you see the world. Welcome to BeingLab. Like I said, we're going to talk about breaks in transparency. That's the topic, today's topic. And let me begin by sharing with you a story, something that just a few days happened. On Sunday, I went on a bike ride, my motorcycle, and I was wearing this protective sweatshirt that I trusted that it will hold my wallet inside this the zipper. And it's one of those zippers that it's on your back. It's like a pouch. And that's where I put my wallet with a lot of cash. I typically don't carry cash, but this time I put a lot of cash. I was going to use it throughout the month. Then I had my driver license, of course, and I had my medical, record card, or the card that I access my doctor with, the Costco card and debit cards and, credit cards. A few other things were there that were important to me. And the wallet itself was a gift that I was, something that I treasured and liked, and I was trying to keep. Well, I was on the freeway riding, and all of a sudden I hear this sound, like whizzing sound, vroom, like that. And I realized that I dropped something. And I immediately touched my back to see if the wallet was still there, and it wasn't. I was very fooled to think that I was able to that I would be able to go back and find it, because I did. I tried twice to, I went around the freeway and took the prior exit and rid that part of the road to see if by any chance I was able to glance at it. And then I was, of course, planning on stopping and calling maybe, highway patrol or find a way. I was not going to expose myself trying to fetch the wallet in the middle of the freeway. But my plan was to at least try to glance at it. That way I thought I was going to be able to recover it. After those couple of tries, I didn't see anything, and I realized, well, it's time to go home without a driver license, without my wallet, without money. And then, if that wasn't enough of an interesting breakdown, the gas light turned on, letting me know that I had, less than 30 miles to make it home. Granted, I was way closer than 30 miles, but it was another alert, another light that was telling me, hey, there's something going on here. There's something happening. And in life, we typically call those problems. We refer as to those moments, those events, we immediately tag them and catalog them into a domain of adversity. We are so quick to jump to the conclusion that that was a bad day, that things turned wrong, that I was having so much fun and all of a sudden this sucks. That's what we typically do. And I guess that's what we learn. We learn that a problem brings you down and success and good things brings you up, makes you smile, makes you enjoy life. And hold on a second. I wasn't cheering and happy that I lost my wallet, but I wasn't down and my day wasn't ruined. And actually, I was able to engage in proper action to take care of that loss. And I'm going to get into it in a moment. But before I get and talk about that, I want to show you that this distinction, the idea of breaks in transparency, is nothing else but a distinction for you to face and navigate challenges from a different place. I am not saying this is the only way, and I am not saying this is the right way. I am only offering a different path for those moments, those events in life when we feel despaired or challenges. We are always going to find ourselves immersed in those situations. There's never, ever going to be a life without a challenge, without something that is going to trigger a little bit of frustration or anger in us. Never, I promise you that. Even in paradise, right? When we take vacations and when we are there laying down, something happens that is out of our control. That it can either ruin our vacation or, simply put, it becomes a learning moment. And so the first thing I want to say is that culturally speaking, when we say the word breakdown, when we say the word break, we associate that with a mental situation, with craziness, with, let's call your doctor, you need to see your therapist. And that is not the distinction I'm trying to offer. I want to double click on your cultural discourses and think of breakdowns as the act of something that was invisible becomes visible. Something that you weren't able to see all of a sudden is so apparent, right? That there's nothing else actually you can see but that. In the example of my wallet, well, I was ignoring the perils of putting my wallet in that pouch. All of a sudden, when the wallet is gone, although it's gone, it's the only thing I can think of and see from that point on. And that's when it dawned on me, wow, this pouch is not safe, or as safe as I thought. See how breakdowns is when the transparency of the world, the invisibility of the world becomes so in your face that in that moment you have several options. One is to say, holy shit, everything's wrong, my life sucks, this motorcycle ride is the worst, or maybe take another path. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, culturally speaking, the invitation is to separate problems from breaks in transparency and to think from now on, if you will, if you can, if you want, to just dismiss the idea of problems and invite the idea of whenever I see a challenging time, a challenging moment, all that happened is that the invisibility, the transparency of the world becomes so apparent, there's nothing else I can do. And let me give another example. For instance, and this happens to all of us, we rely so much on our computer's battery that when we're typing an email or responding an email or on a meeting using our computer, and all of a sudden we lose power, we lose juice, in that moment, the computer itself appears in front of our eyes. We realize, holy shit, yes, I was typing an email and all of a sudden you see the keyboard and all the components, and it is as though the computer magically appears and it was the entire time there. But now our attention goes there because the transparency broke. And now you no longer can email that person or continuing having that meeting, but what is most apparent and on your face is the lack of battery, the lack of juice. Now you have to plug your computer, wait a few moments until the computer comes back on, and then you can continue either writing the email or participating in that meeting. So you see, those breaks are constantly happening in our world. They are a constant. They are recurrent. I can give you thousands of examples, but you know them very well, right? You know them. And so what can we learn? And how do we become friends with these situations is when we learn to see that those moments are teaching moments, are moments to learn. And what we learn is absolutely disconnected from the event, and what we learn is about ourselves. When we lose the battery of our computer, when we realize we don't have enough power to continue that meeting, we can easily blame the computer. We can blame someone or something outside of ourselves. But in truth, no one but ourselves are responsible for charging our computer. And we can only turn our eyes inwards in that moment. We learn that maybe the process or the habit of charging our computer needs to be in place. We need to practice that. And in that moment, wow, we can then learn. Yes, we're going to miss the meeting, and we may not be able to send the email until later. But in that threshold of a time, we just learned a new habit, or that we need to impose ourselves a new habit, a new way of being towards our computer. For me, in that example about riding that motorcycle and losing my wallet, I realized that I was way too confident into thinking that that system of that sweatshirt was going to work to hold a computer, to hold my wallet inside that pouch with a zipper while I'm riding, and I'm riding at least at 60 miles per hour. Wink, wink, right? And so as I'm doing that, things move and shift, and the wind, and so probably that's not the best place to put your valuables. And that's the learning. That's the learning. Our attitude towards that shows how we relate to those events and not about the event. And if this is not clear, for a lot of people losing their wallet, and I've shared this a few times already, today is Wednesday and I lost my wallet on Sunday. And as I share this, people say, aren't you mad at yourself? Aren't you just, so annoyed that you have to go through reactivating or activating your credit cards and your debit cards? And now, getting a new driver license through the DMV is going to be a nightmare. And everyone seems to be so annoyed and frustrated towards that. For myself, for me, it's the opportunity to reconnect with material things from a different perspective. It's also teaching me to let go. Letting go is one of the things that I think are the hardest to do as human beings. Because we impose to a material thing something that is not of its nature. We turn it into something valuable, when in truth, it's just a piece of leather that was holding pieces of plastic and paper and more plastic. And that's it. When we look at it that way, well, I am becoming bigger than the issue, bigger than the challenge. Now, if I see that as a problem, I immediately blame. I can blame myself. I can blame the company that made the hoodie, the sweatshirt that I was wearing. I can blame the wind. I can blame my motorcycle and say I'm no longer going on motorcycle rides because I'm going to lose things. So problems tend to point fingers at everyone and anyone besides ourselves. And breaks in transparency are going to force us, when we have this distinction, to recognize that I am the one creating that situation worse. But that also I have in me the ability to take care of that from a different perspective. Typically, when we have the ability to declare breakdowns, when we see them beforehand, we open possibilities, for instance, for our company. When we see that something is going to happen and we say and raise our hand and say, wait a second, guys, we're going to run out of gas. And that's the situation we are facing. We're heading that way. In that moment, we can make a decision to exit the freeway and put more gas in our motorcycle. Or we can continue pretending nothing's happening. But in any case, the future is going to happen. And in that future, you are going to run out of gas. So once again, declaring breakdowns, it takes responsibility, it takes courage, but also it takes a lot of compassion, and sometimes compassion to ourselves, saying, you know what, I just created a problem for myself. I created a challenge for myself. I can face it the old way, which is to blame, or I can open the possibility to recognize that I didn't have it in me at that time to recognize that that was irresponsible. That putting my wallet there was lack of responsibility and perhaps imagination, I would say. It is so logic that we're not going to do that. But when we do, we also recognize that we fail, that we make mistakes. And that takes, again, a lot of courage and a lot of compassion from ourselves. Something interesting is that when we face a breakdown, a break in transparency, and when we face it in public or with others, that's going to show us, like this, who the person is and not what the event implies. Let me give an example. Imagine that you are with friends on a road trip and you have a flat tire. Immediately, in that moment, you're going to see someone's going to say, no worries, I can change the tire. Someone else is going to say, oh, this trip is the worst. Someone else is going to say, okay, let's call AAA. And like that, you're going to see 3, 4, 5, or whatever as many team players you have showing you their observer. They're going to tell you who they are, not what the problem or the breakdown is. And that's a really important lesson as human beings to learn. I love it when we have challenges because in that moment we're going to learn 2 things. 1, how we see the world and how others see the world. 2, how we take care of things. What's our go-to from our being? And that's so revealing. You cannot camouflage that. You're going to show your true colors when the shit hits the fan. Not when you are in the hammock sipping on piña coladas. No. You show your true colors when you have a flat tire, when you lose your wallet, when you don't achieve the goal that the company declared for your queue. That's when we show our true colors. And so once again, the idea of the ability to see problems as breaks in transparency is just to recognize that sometimes all it takes is for us to look 360 degrees and reach out for help. Who is my network of support as this happens? Who can help me navigate this challenge in a more positive or easier, smoothly? For me, in that case, when I lost my wallet, I had to call my wife and say, you know what, I just lost my wallet. I don't have a driver license to continue this part of the trip. I don't have money to put gas, and I'm heading home. Just in case, just so you know, I may need to call and ask for help. Now you know this is the situation I'm in. And that was amazing. She did nothing but embrace that situation. She was so kind and say, okay, let me know when you get home. I hope you make it safely. She wasn't home. But knowing that I had someone in the known of my breakdown gave me an amazing sense of easiness and comfort. It was comforting knowing that if something happens, now she knows that I don't have my identification or money in that case. And this is more personal and nothing to do with the distinction that we're talking about today. It also dawned on me that, at least for me, I was leaning heavily on having an identity card in my pocket and having money, bills or credit cards or debit cards gave me a sense of security. And riding the rest of the ride without those things didn't make me less of a person, less of a rider. That learning was huge for me. And I've been doing that since Sunday. I've been driving, taking my daughter to places and, going to the grocery store without those things, knowing that my identity is not in a piece of leather or in a piece of plastic, but me, the most intimate, spiritual, and kind part of me is inside of me. And that's the part that I need to learn to show as I have challenges or problems, like we call them. So how do we finish this conversation that I hope you are enjoying is with two things. One is learn to become a radar. Learn to declare that something is going to happen. Don't wait until it happens. If you see it, raise your hand. Because if you're an executive, if you're a mom or a dad planning things and working and outside and coming and going, you have the ability to see it. Raise your hand. Send the email, flag it, call, whatever you have to do, because that helps us find our network of support. Particularly in organizations, when we realize that we're not gonna achieve the financial commitment that we thought we were going to, it is our responsibility to let people know. And in that, people can also, our team or the rest of our staff can plan accordingly. And that's wonderful to know beforehand. The second thing is they will always happen. They will always come. If you think that there's going to be a life, a universe where no bad things are going to come your way, then you better change planets. Because in this planet, we can guarantee that yes, there's harmony, but also there's a lot of conflict. Harmony and conflict are the two constants. They come and go and they come and go. And so breaks in transparency prepares you for learning. It's a huge source of learning. And it's going to show you mostly who you are. And that gives you choice. You get to choose if you want to continue facing those challenges that way, getting frustrated, or maybe finding a new source like compassion or forgiveness or peace. And that's up to you, not up to a wallet or revenue. That is your own prerogative. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I try to bring topics that I think are going to help you personally and also your organization, sometimes in Spanish, sometimes in English, but in both languages, The main commitment is to serve you and share with you a different perspective on common conversations that sometimes need a little bit of, massaging. Take care. See you next time. Thank you for listening, BeingLab. You can follow me on social media at Gonzalo Córdova. Please like and follow, and thank you for being here.